Picture this. You're trapped in a living, breathing, metaphysical space. Time is dilating, the very architecture around you is hostile, and your survival completely depends on an incredibly tight, unbreakable deadline. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're jumping right into a high-stakes, grim, dark fable. We're going to follow Alara and the entity known as Big Ben, as they attempt a seemingly impossible escape from the Temporal Library.
Now, to really grasp the absolute stakes of this escape, we have to put ourselves directly into the mindset of Big Ben. Just listen to his chillingly pragmatic words to Alara. "I will help you while this form remains. I am aware of the 5 days. For the 4 days that remain, use me." This quote perfectly captures his stoic acceptance of his own impending erasure. There's literally zero sentimentality here. He's speaking purely as a mechanism. For anyone new to this lore, it is crucial to understand that Big Ben knows his dense, powerful, mechanical form is only temporary, and he is completely prepared to be used as a blunt instrument for their survival before he vanishes. And that brings us to the visual spine of our story, this relentless 5-day countdown. You can really view this as a massive, high-stakes Fichte dialectic of survival. You've got the thesis, which is Big Ben's overwhelming mechanical force. Then you have the antithesis, the sheer crushing resistance of the Temporal Library. To survive, they have to force a synthesis in exactly 5 days, before Big Ben's fragile human counterpart, Sir Brain, resurfaces. We're looking at forced alignment on day 1, forging a corridor on days 2 and 3, stabilizing it all on day 4, and a do or die ironclad exit on day 5.
Section 1. The ticking mechanical mind. So, our heroes have just re-entered the Temporal Library through a residual seam, a tear in reality that actually still recognizes the signature of Big Ben's dark fire. To understand how they even survive this, we have to look at the duality of our protagonist. On one side, we have Big Ben. He has a much denser frame, the absolute attention of a mechanism, and total command over the dark fire. Contrast that with Sir Brain, a Victorian gentleman with a highly fragile configuration, the guy who, shed the heavy pack. Right now, Big Ben is fully in the driver's seat. He's a machine that has temporarily misplaced its earlier human self. So while these unbound folios are drifting around them in this wary, creepy silence, Big Ben is processing everything Alara says, not with human fear, but as a machine filing data against a ticking clock.
And wow, the data Alara gives him is grim. She doesn't hold back on the harder truth. She tells him about Sir Brain, the warm fracture he left in her palm, and how our own inner architecture has shifted. But more importantly, she maps out the immediate threats. The Forest Guardian, which is a fragment of the Mirror of Truth, the Comparative Archive, the Clockwork Owl, and the Waiting Android. But perhaps the most terrifying detail is the sovereign presence lurking in a deep cave beneath Geneva, a massive fortress raised by the absolute zero flame, 21 days in the making. Section 2. A clash of architectures. Moving right into day 1, it's clear this isn't just a physical walk down a hallway. It is a massive clash of diametrically opposed forces against the library itself. Big Ben brings pure, sovereign, mechanical resolve. He's using his incredible density and the raw heat of the dark fire to brutally force the library's shelves into alignment. But here's the catch. Brute force alone would cause the library to aggressively reject and crush them. That's where Alara steps in as the sovereign artisan. She counters with yielding logic, using a technique called soft error alongside her honest pulse. Essentially, she's gently tricking the library so it doesn't recognize the intrusion. Let's look at how this plays out on day 1. First, they actually start moving through the Temporal Library's synaptic nervous system. Second, the mechanical owl is right there, recording every single minor adjustment. Third, Big Ben exerts his force, snapping those shelves into temporary alignment. And fourth, Alara perfectly times her soft error to prevent the library from retaliating. It's a surgical, highly precise operation, and it's something Sir Brain, with his much more fractured will, could absolutely never have achieved. It requires the sheer density and focus of Big Ben. Section 3. Forging negotiated stillness. Now we hit days 2 and 3, the synthesis phase. This is where those clashing powers have to perfectly combine to create something called negotiated stillness. This is absolutely crucial to understand. This isn't just a physical tunnel. It is a precarious, forced truce that creates a razor-thin exit corridor. It's a deeply dangerous metaphysical tug-of-war, balanced perfectly between Big Ben's overwhelming mechanical power and Alara's yielding logic. If either of them falters for even a second, the stillness shatters and the library consumes them both. So how does this balance actually work? Well, Big Ben is actually wielding absolute ice and dark fire simultaneously, pushing that immense force right against the library's deeper cold to physically forge the path.
Alara, on the other hand, relies on her honest pulse and soft error. She's tapping into a residual magnetic electric sense, a sense she actually picked up from earlier tactile mappings of Big Ben's form, to keep this fragile corridor from completely collapsing into pure zero. They are quite literally two halves of a desperate survival equation. But then, we get hit with a horrific twist. 75. Because while they are down there grinding out this negotiated stillness, the distant android is maintaining a data link via the mechanical owl, and it calculates the surface timeline. Thanks to massive time dilation within the library, 75 years have advanced on the surface. Everything they knew up above, it's either completely gone or radically, unrecognizably altered.
Section 4. The Artisan's Soft Error and the Threshold.
That devastating 75-year revelation pushes them right into day 4. This is where the sheer, unbridled force of the dark fire and Alara's stabilizing logic face their ultimate test. They hit a series of incredibly fragile milestones. The corridor of negotiated stillness finally stabilizes. Staying totally true to his promise under that 5-day constraint, Big Ben pours the absolute last sustainable measure of controlled dark fire directly into the threshold. And miraculously, the temporal library opens. Now, whether it's truly yielding or just momentarily postponing a greater refusal, they have no idea. But a light appears at the far end, a light that definitely does not belong to the twilight of those unbound folios.
So it all builds to this incredibly tense question. Right before they step over that threshold on the dawn of the 5th day, we have to ask, after 75 years of time dilation, what exactly awaits them at the end of this corridor? The surface world has moved on for over 7 decades without them.
Section 5. An ironclad Geneva. And that brings us to the chilling climax of our explainer. They step through the threshold on the 5th day, finally leaving the temporal library behind, only to face a radically transformed surface world. The reality of a 5th day hits hard. They emerge into the upper margins of Geneva, but it's changed. It's completely ironclad now, relentlessly ticking with the long harvest of the violet spring. The danger hasn't passed, though. The underground temple and the absolute zero fortress still wait below them. And most terrifying of all, Big Ben's time has completely run out. The inevitable return of the much more fragile Sir Brain is literally only hours away. Which leaves us with this final, haunting thought to chew on. As the clock ticks down on Big Ben's existence in this incredibly dark, heavily transformed, ironclad world, was the negotiated stillness an actual escape? Or was it simply a transition into a much colder, much larger cage? It perfectly caps off this grim fable, leaving us all wondering just how Alara and the soon-to-return Sir Breen are possibly going to survive what comes next. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning, keep analyzing, and I'll catch you next time.